Fantastic. Okay, let's get going, will we? Miah Smith in New Zealand. As I said, it's 3 o'clock in the morning in New Zealand. Miah should be there. Hello, Miah. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Great to see you. I hope you are. Hope you've got a jug of coffee beside you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for joining us. So yeah, we really appreciate it. You have 530 cows on a 250-hectare farm, and you're going to tell us a little bit about what sounds to me, just from reading your bio, a bit of a before and after story in terms of how you've turned things around. But I'm going to hand over to you now.
Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah, hi everyone. Just a bit of background on my farming career. Started farming when I was 16, dairy farming, and through the last 26 years, I've milked from 200 cows to 1,000 cows on a range of farms, all conventional systems. I've done irrigated farms and high input as well. So I've had a wide range of dairy experience, and during that time when I was younger, I trained with the New Zealand dairy system, and most of it was about pasture management, ryegrass systems. So that was drummed into me while I was young. I got very good at it. I did not let any grass go to seed all year, and that was sort of 20 years of my career doing that. And then my wife and I got an opportunity to buy a farm, which was, well, we were in Taranaki, and this farm was over in the central North Island, close to Rotorua. And that was an equity partnership opportunity with Jenny's family. And so we looked at this farm, and it was a forestry conversion. So I had pine trees on it for over 25 years, and they'd come out roughly 4 years before we took over. The infrastructure on the farm was just amazing. Brand new houses, new races, everything was new, 74-bale rotary shed. And I thought, well, the pasture wasn't very good, but I thought I'd come in there and lift the fertiliser levels, and everything would be all good. Pretty easy to fix the farm up, and we'll get it humming, and everything will be fine. So, yeah, that was 10 years ago now. There's the farm, 250 hectares, and this year we're milking 520 cows, but we've brought our heifers home onto the farm. We used to graze them out, but I got sick of paying the $50,000 a year, so we've brought them back, dropped our cow numbers a little bit, so we're still just trying to get that right. So this farm had 8 years conventional fertiliser, and now we've been doing 6 years of regenerative trials and 4 years full farm regenerative resilient farming. I am classed as a regenerative farmer in New Zealand. What that means, I'm not totally sure, but yeah, I'll tell you the story, and you'll find out, I suppose. And 2 years ago, we made another system change to once-a-day milking, which was partly a lifestyle thing. We've got two boys. We want to spend a bit of time with them, and staff in New Zealand are becoming hard to get good ones. So we've got one staff member, and he's been with us for 6 years, and hopefully he doesn't go anywhere. It's hard to find a once-a-day job, so he probably won't. So after 4 years of pouring money into fertiliser on this farm, we were growing good grass, but it got back to when we came into summer, we'd have maybe 10 days to 2 weeks hot weather with no rain, and the grass sort of shriveled up, and the ryegrass just couldn't handle it on these hills, and it sort of started dying off, and all of a sudden we're in this massive deficit, and all the during spring was just wasted, and we had to buy a lot of feed in. So one day I was out there and I actually dug a hole in the ground, which I hadn't done for 20 years of my dairying career. No one ever would teach you about the soil or anything like that. And I found that the root systems of the ryegrass were 2 to 4 inches deep, and no one's happy with 2 to 4 inches. So I thought, there's the problem. I just need to get deeper roots and more topsoil, because the topsoil was about that depth as well. So I went around about buying. I bought 3,000 tonne of compost. I didn't know anything about it really at that stage, and I thought I'd build the topsoil up by putting compost on top. Quite a hard case, how I was thinking back then. And then I was at a barbecue, and I had a couple of young mates that were, sort of hippie types, farmers. And one of them said, "Hey, that's not how you build topsoil, you build it down." And I sort of went, "Oh, whatever, yeah, whatever." And he said, "Oh, there's this lady coming from Australia to talk in about a month's time. You want to come along? Her name's Christine Jones." And I thought, oh, an Australian telling me how to farm. I wasn't that keen, really, to be honest. But he did drag me along to this day, and I listened to Christine, at that day, and she just taught me about how the soil works, the biological cycle, the relationship between the grass and the soil microbes, and how that exchange system works for minerals, feeding the soil through the roots, and in return getting them minerals back. And when you use a lot of synthetic fertilizer, that just dulls that down, and they don't really need to exchange. So really, I sort of thought, well, that's how you build topsoil, by doing that and getting them roots down and feeding carbon into the soil. So I came home pretty excited. I mean, I've never heard anyone speak about soil biology or anything like that. So I was pretty fizzed up. Got home and I told my wife, we're going to start using this seaweed. And she sort of said, "Sounds like you joined a cult," and she thought I'd gone mad. So in the end, the company who brought Christine over, Agrosea, which is a seaweed company in New Zealand, brought Christine to the farm, and she sat down with Jenny and went through it, it's quite amazing to have someone like Christine on your farm. So we ended up setting up some trials, and at the start they wanted to do some of our better paddocks, and one of my mates, well, all of my mates are conventional dairy farmers, he was like, "Nah, give them the hardest, shittiest land, it's all a crock of shit," and rah rah rah. So I gave them some of the harder parts of the farm. The pH was 5.3, I think. It was a pretty patchy area, and we started a trial. So one paddock got the conventional fertiliser on the left there, and the other side got 15 litres of soil nutrition and 15 litres of pasture nutrition. That was put on 3 times a year. So what happened in the first 3 years with the root depth, you can see the Agrosea seaweed line, the root depth just went up quite substantially, and I was pretty excited about that after 3 years. And you can see the conventional paddock pretty much just stayed where it was. So that was my first one, and I thought, I'm onto something here. This is good. I was always worried about Olsen P because the big fert companies here just, push that we're really short of phosphate in New Zealand, but Christine, she really said that that wouldn't happen. We got plenty in the soil. So we took soil tests, and this is, I think, 15? Yeah, I think 5 years worth of soil tests. We use the Olsen P test in New Zealand. Green line is Agri-Seed. The red line is the conventional paddock. You can see the trend lines going through the years. It just follows one another. That would have been right after an application there, and it comes back down. So, and we did notice a trend of in the winter, when we took a sample, the Olsen P level was always low, and in the spring it came up and was higher. And that's just your biology releasing phosphate. So that was a good indicator to me that we weren't going to just mine all our phosphate out and would have to, spend another $500,000 putting it back on. So at this stage, after 3 years, I started sort of rolling it out over my farm. But we've taken an approach to do it slowly. Potassium, pretty much exactly the same. I mean, if we look here, actually, with no potassium added, our potassium is actually higher than when we began, which is, everyone said that your potassium would leach on these pumice soils, quite light soils here, and the opposite's happened. It's actually gone up, which sort of, I don't know why that is, but that's what happened. So you can see after 3 years, this was sort of our root system, bugger all, and in the dry that just dried up and died pretty much. Ryegrass is absolute shit here in the summer. And over here you can see we're just starting to get that root depth down. So double that in 3 years. Christine Jones came back to New Zealand a couple of years later. So I went along to see that, which was a different presentation of hers about multi-species swards. And I thought she was mad going away from ryegrass. It took me a while to get my head around this one, because I've always been trained to keep ryegrass short and manage it well. So I brought enough seed for 10 hectares, and I said, I'll give this a go, nothing to lose really. And what Christine said has happened on the trial area. So I brought 10 hectares, and I had enough balls to put in about 1.5 hectares, and the rest sat in the shed until I sort of saw what would happen. And I wasn't back at the start. It didn't do that well, actually. And that was because of my management. I was still on a conventional management system. And I talked to Christine about it, and she said, well, what's your recovery time? And I said, 18 days. And she said, Miah, well, maybe you could just stretch that out a bit more, maybe give it 30 days. So that's what we did. We changed our management on that paddock. And, it started to come away, and the longer the recovery, the better it got, really. And so we started down that track of changing our management just in that paddock, and the observations were the longer recovery, the deeper the roots. We were getting roots down to 0.5 metre in that paddock, which really blew my mind. That was, really, it was a trigger for me to say, well, this is the way to go. And then Christine came back again. I think it was the year after. But this is one of our days on the farm. We had a lot of interest. We had at least 100 people there. There's the kids getting in there, digging down, seeing how deep the roots were. They, at that age, they loved it. now they just want to ride motorbikes. But we went back, before that day, we went back to this salad paddock, and Christine said, "Have you dug a hole, Miah?" And I said, "No, I haven't." And she looked at me like, "Oh." So I got the spade out and I dug a hole, and it was black soil, and about 30 centimeters deep. And I thought, whoa. And we had a discussion about maybe there was a burn pile there or something. So I dug a few other holes, and they were all the same. And then I kept digging holes everywhere until Christine was yelling at me saying, "Miah, you're not going to have a paddock left." And, it was a really awesome day that day. I remember it well. And so a lot of our soil was like on the left, and that paddock sort of changed in 18 months. It was quite amazing. So, it was a really good result. We've got roots coming down to 45 centimetres. And the longer I left, like this is getting on to about 35 days recovery. This paddock had no fertiliser in that photo for 3 years, just the seaweed. And it is slow coming out of winter. I've found we get maybe up to 30 frosts in the winter. But once you hit spring and you give it that good recovery, you can really grow some biomass. So I thought, well, should we give it a bit longer and see what happens, just as a trial. It's only a small paddock. So this is taking it out to 45 days. That's my wife, Jenny. She's not that tall, so it makes it look extremely long. But, it's up to you, over your hip sort of height. And I thought in my conventional mind that the cows would absolutely crash when we put the cows in here. I thought, this quality's gone. They're not going to milk off it. So I put them in there anyway. And the cows went up, which kind of blew my mind. It's another conventional ryegrass theory that, if you let things go a bit far, then your cows will crash. And that is true on ryegrass. I must admit, on a monoculture, the cows do drop quite a lot. But with these mixed species, it didn't happen. And I was doing a bit of bricks testing in here, comparing it to my high nitrogen paddock, and this was brixing around 18, and the high nitrogen was around 3 or 4, which was quite interesting. So the next time we let this go to about 60 days, and that's sort of, you're looking at 6 or 7 tonne of dry matter. I would call this a deferred paddock now in my management, and we graze that now. At that time, I would now leave that a bit longer to get that seed to set, and then I'd strip graze this. So it was a learning experience about management and all of that sort of stuff. But the cows didn't drop when they went into this, which was a good surprise as well. So here's the cows in there. You can see it's up to their gut. Not in my wildest dreams would I ever manage something like this. The rest of the farm was still being conventionally managed at this time. And I suppose being such a small paddock, it was only half the size of what they'd normally get. So without knowing it, I actually upped my density in there, which does help. But the cows couldn't eat half of that. And within an hour and a half, they're all sitting down ruminating. Normally that would take us 3 hours for our cows to sit down and ruminate on normal shorter grass. And it's just so easy for them to shovel it in their mouths, when it's that long. So and that must have been 3 years ago now when we got to this stage, and I've been doing trials and all sorts of stuff ever since. So You can see the biomass in there, like there's just so much feed. I think in that 60 days, we would have grown as much in that paddock as what we would have grown in 12 months with the ryegrass system. And it probably cost us about a quarter of the price when you remove that fertiliser cost. So these are some of the carbon results we got, which we did this just out of interest. And we call that paddock the salad paddock, and then we've got the conventional paddock on the right. You can see the carbon results there. Total carbon is about 1% higher in that multi-species paddock. So we did take this information to one of the scientists, and he just poo-pooed it and said we didn't test it right, so that's all good. We've started testing it properly now, so we'll get them results back in another paddock that we've just put a multi-species cover in, so that'll be interesting as well. But what we did, we went quite deep. We went first to 15 centimetres, then from 15 to 30, and still double the carbon in that paddock. And then again down to 45 centimetres, and there's almost double the carbon in there as well. So one day the government's going to pay me for that, I'm sure of it, if we get our testing right. That'll be nice. And we won't have to sell the farm to the pine tree guys, there's dairy farms around us that have sold recently to go back into pine trees, which is quite ironic for carbon credits. So hopefully in the next 10 years, we'll get some proper results and we can prove this. You can see the darkening of the soil as we get deeper. Yeah, I haven't actually had a dig in there for a while, but quite amazing how that paddock changed. So on to present day, what we're doing now. This is a summer mix that I've put in. Pretty basic summer mix. Got no permanent grasses in, so what I do is I've just drilled that in. I'd use glyphosate at half rates with fulvic acid and seaweed. So we've cut our Roundup down by, I think, we're down to about a quarter of what we used to use. And then I just direct drill this in because I find cultivation on this light pasture, it doesn't do the soil structure much good. It just turns to dust, so I'd rather not. So we put this in and we'll graze this a couple of times in the summer. Let it get up to sort of 5,000 or 6,000 kilos of dry matter a hectare, and then when we come to the autumn, we'll direct drill our grasses in, cocksfoot, fescue, phalaris, ryegrass sometimes, and then that turns into our permanent mix. And other times I've pretty much direct drilled our whole farm now with multi-species straight into the ryegrass, and I do that in the driest time of the year. So when the ryegrass starts dying here, that's when I get in the late summer, drill straight into that, and then that's got less competition when it rains, and we've had really good results with that. So most of our farm has got some sort of mixed species in it now. And yeah, so we're getting different heading dates of all the grasses. The whole lot doesn't go to seed at once, so it's working really well. And in the summer here, the cocksfoot really goes well. It's probably the best summer grass out of the lot. So when the ryegrass is dying out, the cocksfoot and the fescue and the prairie grass really come to their own. For winter, we do a mixed species winter crop. And same thing, as long as we don't pug it or anything like that, we're pretty careful when we graze it, but sometimes you can't help it. And we just drill the grasses in afterwards. And I think the last winter mix we did, 3 out of the 4 paddocks were good enough to do that, and 1 paddock we had to put a permanent mix in because we made a bit of a mess, which can happen. So here's a few photos of that winter crop, sorry. So we sowed this in late December and it got no rain for 2.5, 3 months. And I thought it was a bit of a disaster, but once we got the autumn rain, I think we got about 8 tonne of dry matter, and it turned out really good. It was my first time I'd done a winter mix like this, and the cows did well on it, and the kids were quite impressed. So yeah, I'm always trying different mixes now. I enjoy that. I enjoy that part of it. Certainly fun to do a mix and see how it turns out, and so don't be scared to try something different. I mean, I certainly haven't lost any money by doing it. I think in animal health has been quite incredible, the responses we've got there. So, and I've got a few figures on that coming up. So general grazing now, in the winter, 100 days recovery, spring 30, we move out to 45 days while the grass is still humming. We can grow up to 100 kilos a day, so that's pretty much what we're growing at the moment here in late spring. Autumn, yeah, 45 days. And in the spring, we can up our density if we think we are losing a bit of quality. We've done a bit of trials on that, and you can definitely go too high density. We saw a bit of stuff on Facebook about all these people with super high densities and all of that. We tried that, and if you trample too much and leave too much carbon on top, that can result in a much longer recovery period, and it takes a while to break that down. But usually this time of year we'll go to 3 to 4 shifts a day. Defer grazing or silage, we've got about 30 hectares shut out at the moment, and our 10 hectares is summer crop. So these were our high density grazing trials, and on the left screen, the cows didn't like that. They were too close. Within half an hour they were wanting to be shifted, and it took a long time for that to recover. So we sort of worked out what a good density is now. So we just add normally we'd just shift them twice a day, and if we want to up our density, then we'll cut one paddock in half and then get 3 shifts. So nobody wants to be doing too many shifts in summer because there's fishing to do. So yeah, that was, but you've got to do these trials to see what works, and it doesn't always work, but we've found what works for us now, which is good. This is the sprayer I use. New Zealand company makes these, Toe and Fert. They can do suspended limes. You can put nitrogen straight into them. They've got like a boat propeller inside of it. You can put small seed, chicory, plantain, any clovers in it, and spray them out at the same time. So at the moment, our current spray mix is Agri-Seed seaweed, fish hydroslate, EMs, humates, 10 to 20 kilos of nitrogen, depending on how much grass we've got. Are we fixing nitrogen in the soil? If we need it, I'll use it. If we don't, I won't. That's sort of how we're farming at the moment. But we always buffer it with the humates and the seaweed and the EM. We're finding we get, if we're putting 20 kilos of N in a liquid, we're finding we get a response of the same as 40 kilos of N in a solid form. So you can halve your nitrogen in the first year and not lose any production. So there's a few farmers clicking onto this now in New Zealand. And once a year we do a fine lime suspension with a wide range of trace minerals as well. And our total nitrogen use has dropped from 160 hectares from now down to 20 to 80, depending on the season. this year we're going to use a bit more because we've had a real shitty cold winter that went on for an extra month. So we used a bit more to get us through that. But I have been down to 20 kilos in that season. I probably could have got away with using none. Our phosphate and potassium use, we've dropped that out to 95% less usage of that. Don't seem to need it with all these biologicals we're putting on. Seems to be releasing quite nicely, which shows you your biology is humming along nicely. And our fertiliser costs are around about $100,000 less per season, which is quite nice. Paid for that sprayer in 1 year. And with the prices this year, urea's here is just about double per tonne. I would say that our fertiliser costs will be more like $150,000 less, which is, it's a nice feeling not to have to pay them big bills. Now, animal health costs, probably one of the greatest things of this system is our animal health. We used to have heaps of trouble with cows not cycling, milk fever, lame cows, all of them things that you're just used to dealing with on a daily basis in a conventional system. They've just dropped out to, a problem here and there. And our animal health is down to between $20 and $30 a cow. We used to be in between 70 and 90, and the average cost per cow in New Zealand is about $120. Some of this is from the once-a-day milking, but not all of it. We had these results before we went once a day, so we don't use any intervention in mating anymore. We used to have to put seeders in, which is an intervention to get the cows cycling. And now we've got, it looks like we're on track to inseminate 100% of our cows in 3 weeks. Unheard of in New Zealand. Our empty rate's down in between 7 and 10%. The average in New Zealand is 14 or 15 now. And our mating is going on to about 11 weeks. So we put the bulls out after 4, and they're out there for another 7 weeks. And our farm profit is in a range of $800 to $1,200 a cow. So usually we're around that $500,000 mark, and the payout's been quite good, which is helping that. The average profit per cow in New Zealand is around that $1,000 mark. So we believe we're making the same amount of money, and probably more than what we used to. We only have to milk once a day. We've only got one staff member to worry about, and farming's got a lot easier in the last 3 or 4 years. So once I got my head around it and we saw some results, we did the trials, the system is working really well. So we're just going to do another couple of years of this, and then maybe try and change it up a bit more to our nitrogen again. So yeah, and that's it, guys. So hopefully I didn't babble on for too long.
Miah, thank you so much. It's just extraordinary. David, I just want to get your response to that. I mean, making the same amount of money, but look at that transformation. It's just incredible.
And looking at the cows in the pasture, the bloom on them. And I just have a quick question for Miah. The issue of cow longevity in herds is a major controversial issue, and here we would have nationally around 3.4 lactations per cow. They're kind of done at 6, 7, 8 years of age. Miah, do you see, and would you have a target, which I think is the true reflection of a system that's working and nutrition working correctly, of say a minute? What would your target number of lactations per cow be, say, when you have this system really stabilised, that you'd be happy with?
Yeah, I don't actually have a target, but I can tell you our oldest cow is 15. Probably once they get to 10 years old, some of them start having trouble with their udders, and you get a bit of mastitis trouble with them. That's what we've found. But if they're a good cow, we'll keep them as long as they keep performing. So, yeah, we've had cows up to 18 years old here, and the once a day maybe a bit harder on their udders. That's as they get older. That's one thing I've found. But yeah, we like our cows to be, when they're 8 years old here, they are pumping. That's their prime for us, 6 to 8 years. So you wouldn't want to get them gone before that.
Miah, just one quick question, which is, you mentioned earlier about, everyone said pea would leach, the fertilizer company said the pea's too low, and these sort of accepted truths that you had until you started testing and realizing actually that's not the case. How do you look back on that? Because a lot of this also is about trust, isn't it? Being able to trust your judgment versus what you're being told by everyone.
Yeah, it's a hard step. That's why we did the trials. I did believe Christine, but it was quite hard to believe, being a conventional farmer, that you weren't just going to be, raping your soil of all these minerals. So I felt a bit ripped off that I'd spent so much money on fertiliser, really. But yeah, it's a good feeling now to know that that's not really a problem. And if it is, I'll put some more on, but it'll be in a different form. But so far, we test every year on them paddocks, and there's absolutely no problem at all.
Okay, we have a lot of questions, so let's get through them. Just looking down here, and if any questions in the audience, just wave your hand at me. Hi, Miah, this is Kevin O'Hanlon. Are paddocks sprayed off after summer mix before being reseeded?
No.
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 There you go. Brendan Healy, do you find poaching on multi-species really damages the recovery of plantain and chicory and causes weeds like docks to appear?
No, we don't have too many docks. And if the docks come up in our multi-species, the cows just eat them now. So, yeah.
Okay, Glenn Boyd, how quickly are dairy farmers in New Zealand adopting this alongside you? Do your peers think you're mad too?
Yeah. I love going down the pub and having that conversation. And after about half an hour, they don't understand it anyway. So after about half an hour, they give up.
It's interesting, isn't it? When how difficult is it to step outside of what all the other farmers are doing and sort of pave your own way? I mean, obviously you have Christine advising you, but yeah, go on.
Yeah. I'm the sort of person that I don't really give a shit about what other people think of me, so that helps.
That helps.
And I love giving conventional guys a bit of shit about their nitrogen use, and especially when the price goes up. It's bloody wonderful. Yeah.
You said that you saved, what was it, 100 grand less on fertiliser costs. What about the cost of the seaweed supplements and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so we spend about in between $60,000 and $100,000 a year now. That includes all our biologicals and any nitrogen we use. And we used to spend 170 per grand. The seaweed, when you first buy it, does seem expensive, but you only use 5 litres a hectare at a time. So it's quite cheap. It's a lot cheaper than synthetics. And I use a range of different biologicals now too. So I use a bit less than the recommended rate when you're mixing 2 or 3 biologicals together. So I've got a recommended rate of 10 litres, but you're using 4 different things. You drop that back to 3 or 4 litres each, or 5 litres each, and you'll still get that awesome response. So yeah. And
the animal health aspect is interesting, and I'm sure James Foley will talk a bit about this as well. Can you just talk briefly, Miah, what medications could you pull back on? I know some guys on multi-species swords talk about anti-helminths being able to pull back on their use.
Yeah, well, we've pulled back on most things. I mean, we used to have metabolic problems during calving, and we used to use 4 or 5 ton of mag oxide on the pasture, just pouring it on, And when you're using that much, it can't be good for them either. So now we use about half a ton, and we have, well, maybe we had 3 or 4 milk fever cases out of the 500, and we used to be 30 or 40 cows. So we've cut that right back. We don't use zinc or facial eczema anymore. We don't use bloat oil. We don't inject our cows with copper or cobalt anymore. So, yeah, we've just really, over the whole scale of things, we just don't use nearly as much minerals. We still use a bit, and we also put the seaweed in the water. And there's some awesome research that's come out of Lincoln University. With the Agri seaweed anyway, at a 5 ml dose, your cows put on more weight in the winter. They ruminate better, and they actually produce 20% less urinary nitrogen, which is quite interesting and probably quite a big thing for New Zealand going forward.
And a kind of fuzzy question, but what about the behaviour of the cows themselves? Have you seen any difference or not?
Our cows are pretty quiet. They always have been, because my wife's a bit of a cow whisperer. She likes to stand there for hours patting them. Yeah, they're pretty relaxed. I mean, they're getting fed pretty well at the moment, and when you see them, when you shift the paddock and the young ones are running and bucking around, you know they're healthy. They're just, the less friendly cows, the better for me, because they just stand in the yard and want to be patted. But, definitely less stress. They're probably like the people on the farm, just more relaxed. You've got more time. It's been good for the humans as well. Mentally and physically, yeah.
We have a question from the floor here.
Yeah, hi Miah. Just a query on your reductions in phosphorus and potash. Do you know what the reserves are in your soils for potassium? We have quite good reserves of phosphorus in our soils in Ireland, so we could have up to 50 times the level of total P versus plant available. But our potassium levels, totals versus plant available, are quite lower, maybe sometimes only 5 to 10 times the amount. So, your reductions are massively impressive on P and K. I was just wondering, do you know what the levels of totals are in the K particularly versus the totals?
Yeah, I don't know the totals in K. Sorry. I know potassium is, would it be? I think it was around 1,200 kilos a hectare. That's for phosphorus, sorry. Potassium, I don't know. I was always going to be putting it on, because that was, all the people, all the conventional fertiliser guys said that was the first thing that was going to leach away, because it goes through the pumice soil. So I didn't really look at the total, sorry.
The question here, one that I've heard quite a bit as well here. Brendan asks, have you made silage with the mixed species sward, and how do they test?
Yeah, I haven't tested it. I don't like spending too much money on testing things. I have made bales out of it, and what I found was the chicory can go really woody. So that's, so you'd have to, the cows still wait in the winter, but probably not the greatest milking feed when you got trees coming out of the bales, because, when it gets to shoulder height and it goes really woody. So, but if you mowed it shorter, it would be beautiful silage, I think. Yeah, and I'm going to be doing a bit this year, and that'll go into a stack. Yeah.
Fantastic. Last question here. Andrew Ferguson asks, is Miah using his regenerative tag in branding or marketing of his produce? Are customers responding, if so?
Oh, I'd love to be, but in New Zealand we're all about exporting milk powder. So I supply a small milk company called Miah, which is a Maori-owned company. We've got 100 suppliers, so it is a small one compared to Fonterra. They're very interested in it. They've been doing some workshops. They've come to my farm.
Are they paying you a bonus yet?
Premium. Eh?
Are they paying you a bonus?
No, not yet. That's where they want to go, but they're having a lot of pushback, unfortunately. Some of their bigger farms are saying, no, we don't want to do that, because they can't get their head around it. They think it's going to be too hard. They just want to farm inside the box. So until they can get enough suppliers to make a product, we're not going to get any extra. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sean.
Hi, Miah. Yeah, really interesting. Can I ask you very quickly, because I know we're pressed for time, two things. First of all is grazing. How long are you getting from grazing the multi-species? Because we're starting to see a lot of people talk about here that maybe after year 3 it's starting to fade out quite a bit. And are you replenishing all the time? And the second most important question, who's going to win tomorrow, Saturday?
Well, I don't know about that, but I know that answer there. That's good. Yeah, well, I mean, in the winter, I'll graze it quite hard. I'm not worried about residual in the winter. We've had a bit of research in New Zealand back in the 70s that in the winter you lose no production if you graze hard. In the spring, if you graze really hard, you lose 45% growth. And in the summer, if you graze hard, you can lose up to 75%. So that's sort of my residual. Starts off quite low, and as we move through into summer, I have quite a high residual and quite a long recovery period. Yeah, I have had some open up, to be honest. Some of it had to do with grass scrub. I get a bit of that coming out of forestry. We don't have that natural bacteria in the soil. Well, we do, but not enough of it. But the paddocks that I've just direct drilled into ryegrass are quite good. They haven't opened up at all. So, yeah, I think management's got quite a lot to do with it. If you're just going to hammer the shit out of it over and over, it'll open up. Yeah, definitely. But if you can give it a good rest going into summer, I think you'll find that, and even, yeah, you'll find that it lasts a lot better if you can do that.
Okay, and very briefly then, finally, John.
Yeah, sorry, Miah, excellent, really enjoyed that. Just one question, you showed us a picture of your tow and fert sprayer, and I don't know, did I pick you up right? Did you say that you can put out small seeds too for distribution in that? Yeah,
you can, yeah. Yeah, you can put any hard small seed through it, up to 20 kilos a hectare.
Oh, fantastic.
So if I have a paddock and I don't want to get my drill out, and I'm doing a fertiliser application, and I say, well, that paddock hasn't got that many herbs in, I'll put a couple of bags of chicory with a bit of plantain and just oversow that, and then cows can come in and trample that up.
Okay, so it sprinkles out at the back of the sprayer, is that it?
Yeah. It's got about a 20 metre M-arms fold out.
Oh, very
like
good.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's got two sprinklers on it that shoot out the back, 20 metre sort of a coverage, yeah.
Brilliant.
All right, Miah, listen, thank you so much. We've had a really big response from people who are watching here in Ireland. We're very grateful to you for staying up all night. We're going to go to Waterford shortly. We're going to have a little break. Miah, if you'd like to see your equivalent in Waterford, he's coming up in about 5 minutes, but I'm sure Bed is calling. Just finally, Miah, can people stay in touch with you? Are you on social media? Do you have any presence online that people can contact you directly?
I've got a Facebook page under my name, but I don't like social media that much, to be honest. I spend too much time looking at it, you know, and I do get a lot of messages and that from people. It's quite hard to keep up sometimes, but, you know, yeah, you can look me up if you want. There's not a lot of action going on my page.
Fantastic. Listen, Miah, thank you very much, and good night to you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Cheers.
So we're going to take a very short break, about 5 minutes. We'll be back with James Foley in Waterford.